also known as the Rooted Dietitian. Today I'm working in my kitchen and I'm going to take you along with me. I am making bone broth from scratch and then turning it into a nourishing and delicious soup. I'll be roasting a pumpkin and then turning that into 2 different recipes. So I hope you'll stick around and watch. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're new, please subscribe. Before the day gets going, I want to start with a cup of coffee. I like to drink iced lattes pretty much year round. I haven't gotten into warm coffee yet. I just love iced coffee. So I normally drink a couple of shots of espresso mixed with raw milk and ice, and it is so delicious and simple. Before I get really busy in the kitchen, I like to come out to my garden every morning, check on things, and just see what's going on. I'm currently battling some green caterpillars. You can see all of the holes in my broccoli. That's been a little bit sad, so if you have any tips, please let me know. I am picking some Swiss chard, parsley, and a little bit of rosemary for the soup I'll be making later. I love Swiss chard. It's so easy to cook and it does really well in soups, which is perfect for this time of year. The first thing that I'm going to get going in the kitchen today is bone broth. I have been making bone broth since I was in high school, and I used to do it on the stovetop, simmer it slowly for 12 to 24 hours. And then I got an Instapot several years ago, and that is how I have been making bone broth. It makes it a lot simpler in my opinion, and I don't plan on going back to the stovetop version. So, this is something that you don't really need to overthink. Just find the bones that you have, put them in the pot, cover them with good filtered water. It's really nice if you can add 3 to 4 chicken feet. That's going to give you a really nice rich source of collagen. You will just want to remove the nails off of the chicken feet with a sharp knife. That will allow the minerals and all of the good nutrition to be released. What I'm doing now is I'm going to add about a tablespoon or so of apple cider vinegar to my filtered water. I've already got the bones in the pot. Adding the apple cider vinegar helps release the minerals from the bones, so you'll want to soak it for about 30 minutes before you start cooking. Now that the bone broth is going, it is time to start working on this pumpkin. Peeling a pumpkin can feel like a daunting task. All in all, it takes about 5 to 7 minutes, at least for this one. Once you get it peeled, it just makes it so much easier to cut. So that is why I recommend peeling it first. The reason I'm setting it down on a towel is just to help keep it from sliding around. Cutting gourds and pumpkins can be quite dangerous because they're just hard to cut. So I started to cut into this one and I was like, yep, that's why I don't like cutting the skin, and I finished peeling it. After I got the pumpkin peeled, I laid it down and cut it in half. I think this can be a really fun activity to do with your kids. I think I'm gonna try doing it again and letting my toddler scoop out the insides. I think he'll have a fun time with the texture. So I'm reserving the seeds so that I can roast them later on. I have to note that this bowl might catch your eye. It's really special. It's actually over 100 years old, and it was my great-grandmother's, and she lived to be 108. My great-grandmother was special. She loved to cook in cast iron, and she loved her bacon. So I quartered up the pumpkin. That's what I'm doing now, just getting it cleaned up. Rubbing it down with a high heat cooking oil such as ghee or avocado oil is best for roasting. It's going to go into a 400-degree oven. I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes and then check it. While I have the cutting board out and I'm making a mess, I'm going to go ahead and get some of my vegetables ready for the soup that I'm going to make later on tonight. So I'm just getting some carrots and green onions chopped up. Normally I would use a yellow or a white onion, but I didn't have any, so I just used whatever I had. That's the beauty of making soups and stews, is that you can make it work with what you have. So my goal later on in the video is really just to show you that soups are very versatile. There's a lot of room for flexibility and creativity, and again, just using what we have. Sometimes it is good to not have all the things that you think you may need for a recipe, because you may try something new and discover something new that you really like. And that's where you really learn how to cook and blend flavors and textures and new vegetables and meats together. I'm just finishing up by chopping up this green onion. I'm just going to store everything in my fridge. I'm also peeling some garlic. Just anything that creates a mess, I'm trying to get it done. Getting these things done now while I'm already making a mess just makes my evening simpler, and I can just simply throw things in the pot and get it simmering. The pumpkin has been roasting for about 20 minutes, so I'm going to check it and rub it down again with a little bit of ghee and sprinkle some spices on it. You could kind of see me smashing it, and that was just so that the flesh would make contact with the pan. That really helps with the browning and roasting process. It's gonna go back in the oven for another 15 to 20 minutes. Talk about the smells of fall. This smells so amazing, and now that I'm adding these spices, I'm just using pumpkin pie spice and cinnamon. It is really going to smell amazing. Here is what my pumpkin looked like after it was roasted. I did kind of jostle it around, that's why it looks that way. But it's soft to the touch, and all in all, it took about 40 minutes. Now I am getting my oatmeal bake mixed together. I will link the recipe in the description box below. This is a soaked oatmeal bake. So the oatmeal is soaked overnight for about 12 hours. This helps break down some of the phytic acid, making it easier to digest, and also just reducing the phytic acid content helps to reduce those anti-nutrients and help you get more of the nutrients. I am simply blending the pumpkin up in my Vitamix. It is a pumpkin oatmeal bake, so this part of this pumpkin is going to go into my oatmeal bake recipe. Again, the full recipe is on my blog. I hope you try it. It's really hearty and delicious, perfect for fall and winter. Now I am just adding in 3/4 of a cup of pumpkin. Again, the recipe is on my blog, linked below. You by no means have to make your own pumpkin. Life gets so busy, this is an extra step that can definitely be skipped. I just think it can sometimes be a fun way of getting into the fall season, and I thoroughly enjoy doing it. But again, you don't have to do it. This is what the mixture looks like when it is ready to be baked. I heated my cast iron skillet in the oven, so that's what the directions say to do. You just put it in the oven before you preheat, and then let it sit in the oven while you're preheating the oven. This will get the cast iron skillet nice and hot. I'm melting some butter. I'm generous. I use 2 tablespoons. This helps coat the pan. Then pour in the mixture, and it's ready to go into the oven. I bake it for anywhere around 40 to 50 minutes. I think it's always a good idea just to set your oven to 30 minutes and then check it every 10 minutes after. You want the center to be firm, and you can insert a toothpick to see that it comes out clean. That will let you know that it's done. This portion of the video really is kind of just a little bonus and a fun addition. I have no recipe for this yet. I'm still working on a pumpkin cream cheese kolache recipe. Actually, I did not use cream cheese, I used farmer cheese. Farmer cheese is kind of almost like a ricotta cottage cheese texture, maybe a little bit more sour, and that's what is traditionally and often used in kolaches for filling, one of the many fillings. I learned how to make kolaches from my Slovak neighbor. I am actually Czech, so I grew up with kolaches all the time, but never learned how to make them. So I am playing around with some sourdough recipes and just kind of getting familiar with making them. I am not an expert at working with dough. It is something I'm still very much learning. There is so much to learn when it comes to dough and rising and proofing, and it's really a whole new world for me. I wanted to include this portion of the video just to show you that I'm still very much learning and experimenting in the kitchen. There are so many foods out there that it's just almost limitless when it comes to learning and creating new things. A little backstory on me is that when I was in the 6th grade, my mom told me that I was going to start cooking 2 meals a week. And at first, I was not happy about this because I did not want to and I didn't know how. But by her doing that, it put me in the position to learn at a young age and to take responsibility. So I really have my mom to thank for helping me find cooking as a big interest in my life. I've been in the kitchen 16 years. That's how long I've been playing with food and playing with recipes. I've been doing it a long time. So while I may make it seem easy, some of it I may make seem easy, I've been doing it a long time, and it takes consistent practice and creativity and just willingness to try and willingness to make mistakes. I really say that from a place of just wanting to inspire people to get in the kitchen, learn skills if they want to, because this is where nutrition starts. This is where it starts, in our homes. This is the finished kolaches. As you can see, they did not turn out perfect. They definitely have some character. Experimented with the topping and it needs a little bit of work. And here is the finished oatmeal bake. Changing gears and getting back to the bone broth that I cooked. After 2 hours of cooking the bones at high pressure, I let the pressure naturally release so I don't force release it. And then I added in carrots, bay leaves, onions, celery, garlic cloves, and peppercorns. You can use any combination of that and it will work. Cook it on the soup setting for 20 minutes and let it naturally release. This is what it looks like when it's done. Now that the bone broth is ready, it's time to get started on the soup. So I am starting out by melting some delicious butter. I use, 1 to 2 tablespoons. I just kind of go with it. You want enough to avoid any sticking. Now I'm adding in a few cloves of minced garlic. You can add however much you want. I usually start with about 2 cloves and then go up from there depending on how much garlic flavor I want. Now I'm adding in some green onions. I probably would normally use white onions, but I did not have any, so I went with the green onions just to get that onion flavor. All I'm doing here is just stirring the onions and garlic around, just getting them fragrant and a little bit soft before I add in 1 can of diced tomatoes. This is also when I added in some chopped parsley and fresh rosemary. Now I'm adding in 3 chopped carrots to the soup. You can use any of this stuff that you want. You don't have to use it. Again, soups are very versatile. You can make it suit your family's preference. Now I am straining the broth directly into the pot. This saves time versus straining it into another container and then straining it back into the pot. I just strain it directly into the pot. I put however much I feel like feels right for the thickness I want, and you'll be able to tell when you put your spoon in there, is this too thin or is this too thick? And just kind of go by the feel of the soup. So I have not added my chicken yet. That's why I'm adding so much broth. It looks very thin right now, but I'm going to be adding in some chicken in just a few minutes. So you'll see once I add the chicken the kind of thickness that I was going for. So I am not yet adding the chicken. I am just going to simmer it until those carrots get a little tender. So it's probably going to be about 20 minutes. Once the carrots are tender, I toss in the chicken. The chicken is already cooked. It's just shredded chicken we had for dinner last night, and I'm repurposing it. So it doesn't need much time in the soup to cook. It just needs to be warm. That's all. Now I am adding just several leaves of chopped Swiss chard from my garden that I picked this morning. This takes on the flavor of the soup really well. I've used it in Mexican flavored soups. It just tends to cook in really well with whatever you're making. I'm adding a little bit more broth because I want my texture just a little different. I'm going to bring it up to a boil and then turn it low and simmer it just a little bit longer until that chard wilts. When I set the lid on, I kind of crack it just a bit. My soup is all finished. You can add rice to this. Now rice takes about 30 minutes to cook, so you could add that when you add the carrots. I'm actually serving it over some noodles that I already had cooked, and they were just left over in the fridge. I'm just pouring the hot soup over the noodles, and that's what we're doing tonight. I know we're gonna have leftovers, so I'll add noodles tomorrow for lunch when I make it so that the noodles are fresh. Thank you so much for watching this video. I thoroughly enjoyed teaching and sharing my love of cooking and food. I hope you will stick around, subscribe, and please like this video if you enjoyed it. Thank you.